Hey guys, Fhraelaok here with my very first leadership video. There we go, sorry headset was a little funky. Anyway, in this video I wasn't sure if I wanted to just kind of do a background of some movement here in Stormwind or something, or if I just wanted to give you a plain old ugly background like I did for my my last vlog. Anyway, here's what this one is. You get a little bit of background sound from it, and you can kind of see over Stormwind. I guess I'll face over here so you can see it. I'm going to turn my UI off, move my mouse down in the corner. Just enjoy the scenery, guys. Alright, so like I said, welcome to my first leadership video. In this video, I wanted to go over serious raid leading. It's very important to understand how to lead a raid. Not just in the fact of you have to get the people together, you have to know the fight, and you have to go into it, and try it, and wipe, and learn, and work on it. No. This is coming up because of what just happened in the guild and wiping on Fhraelaok, for example, due to, I believe, honestly, lack of raiding familiarity with some harder mechanics and a lot going on at the same time. Meaning you're both DPS aware and environmentally aware at the same time. And not every fight has that anymore. It's now either you're environmentally aware or you're DPS aware, as in you have to change targets or you have to look on the ground for something, or something's going to come at you or something like that. So, here's how it goes. What you've got to look at is if people can handle the mechanics. Now, let's already assume that you have your team. You're going in, you already have an idea of the fight. Of course, you should have more than an idea. You should know it. You should already know all the different mechanics. It should not be a thing where you have to look up mechanics before you fight. Unless you want to give a word-for-word description of it, you should not have to look it up prior to the fight. You should already have it memorized. But you already have your team, you're going in. Alright, so, we'll even just use Fhraelaok here for an example, because it is one of those little more challenging fights with everything going on in a certain area, and, I mean, you really have to work together on it. So, let's say Tornado comes by. One of your raiders gets caught in it right away. Alright, it happens. You know, let them have a couple times in the tornado until they get used to it. Once they get used to it, should not happen anymore. You know, tell your raiders, this is a great way of learning and working on progression. Now, like I said, I'm talking about serious raiding, not casual raiding, not hardcore raiding, but pretty serious raiding. So, you're trying to progress, but not to the point of where you're going to sacrifice absolutely everything you hold dear just to get that next fight down. So, as I said, they got in tornadoes a few times. They're just not working on it. What you need to do is tell your raiders, you know, if this is being an issue, that sacrifice your DPS and just make sure you're in the right location at the right time. It's better you have low DPS and manage the mechanics than to have high DPS for only about 30 seconds before you die. As 0 DPS is not good DPS. I don't care if you had 50k DPS before you died. So make sure that they get the mechanics down before they push the DPS. Now, if they're doing decently at the mechanics, then they need to be pushing the DPS. For example, on Fhraelaok, you have to watch out for the frost on the ground, you have to watch out for the tornadoes, and you have to be aware of the wind burst. Those are the three biggies. Those are the only three. You don't have to worry too much about that chain lightning, because it's going to happen regardless, so you do want to try to spread out. But if you have to move, you have to move. That's something else. So, you also have to know what to sacrifice over the other. Now, as a newer raider, it's very difficult to understand what's worth sacrificing. But if you get knocked off, you'll notice, oh, I didn't really take any damage from that, it just put me out of commission. Whereas if you get caught in a tornado, it put me out of commission, and it killed me. So, what's better, getting knocked off or getting hit by a tornado? And the same thing is, you know, like that for, let's say, Omnitron, right? You're going in, is it better to run away from the little blue pool that gives you a DPS and mana regen to get Magmatron's little jet away from the raid and, you know, sacrifice maybe your mana or your DPS for a bit? Or is it better to just stand in there and expect everybody else to, you know, run away or something and you not be very aware? I mean, I know it's not exactly the same thing of sacrificing it, but, I mean, you gotta be aware. I'm not just talking about leaders, I'm talking about an entire raid team. Sorry if I jump around from time to time. I don't have this scripted, I just kind of came up with this, so I'm trying to put my thoughts together, and, well, if you've ever done a non-scripted video without too awful much thought into it, you kind of bounce all over. So, it's all about understanding what you need to sacrifice over the other. But, I mean, you have to get mechanics down, and you have to get the DPS down. You have to. Now, the thing about serious raid leading and serious raiding is far from casual raiding. Casual raiding, you might not get something down. It's not a big deal. Your entire team understands that, and you're all friends. Serious raiding is not quite up to the hardcore level of you screw up once and you're out. You're even out of the guild. You're just out. Don't ever come back. But serious raiding is right in between that. If you fail, you're just not doing good enough. Either you're not nailing that DPS, or you're failing at mechanics too much. That's when you need to be kicked, regardless of who you are. Remember, it's not just you and your friend, or your girlfriend, or your wife, or boyfriend, or husband, or partner, or anything like that. It's not just you two in the raid. Alright? They're not raiding to carry you. They're not raiding to deal with screw-ups. They're really not. So with the other, say, 8 people, say you got a friend in there, and there's 8 people, but your friend just screwing up on mechanics, meaning their DPS isn't high, you're wasting too much mana keeping them alive, and they're just having a hard time. That is when, sorry if they're your friend, but they need to be kicked, because there are 8 other people you need to think about in that raid. A lot of people that aren't quite to the hardcore level, or aren't, very outspoken and rude, won't tell you, hey, sorry, man, your boyfriend just, he sucks. I mean, I'm sorry, I know you like him, but, I don't really want to carry him anymore. I'm pretty sure we can get this fight down if we replace him. And you really got to come up with it, in a very nice way. But you have to understand that there's a total of 10 people in that 10-man, 25 people in that 25-man. So, sorry if you have a friend, but you got to think about your raid, not about your personal feelings or their personal feelings. That's the most difficult part of leading a raid, is people's personal feelings. It's not even the mechanics, guys. It's not. You have to have a good team setup, yes. You have to be able to work well as a team and be able to tolerate each other, yes. But you can't be so buddy-buddy that you're sacrificing your own progression and your own enjoyment for them. Now, I'm not saying that this guild is doing that, because it's far from that. They're not. But I do feel that this is a little too casual. I mean, there are people who want to push it harder. And again, this comes into raid leading. If your team seems like it wants to push it harder, a majority of them want to push it harder, and are trying their darn best to do it, whereas others, you just can tell, are like, if it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, it doesn't. Whatever. Look at majority rule. Either that, or I hate to say it, but you're going to have to tell your guys, sorry, we're casual. If you don't like it, you'll have to go find somewhere else. So that's the biggest part of raid leading, like I was saying right there. Personal feelings. Now, recruitment comes into play a lot, and recruitment is also very far from easy. And it's also very far from situational. You just need to do it regardless, even if you have a full team. I mean, you have to know people who are ready to step in if somebody fails to show, or if somebody fails at doing their job, be it watching out and following mechanics correctly, following directions, pulling a pretty bad attitude in a raid, or just being bad at DPS, tanking, or healing. Whatever it is, you have to have somebody that's going to be able to step in. Maybe not that night, but the next night you raid, or by the time the next raid week comes around. Now, as you probably know, I come from a hardcore raiding situation prior to me quitting WoW. We started out very, very casual, not even raiding as a matter of fact, moved into casual raiding, moved into mediocre, kind of in the middle raiding. We were decent, but at the same time, we still had a lot of mistakes. We were new to raiding. and then we moved into the series rating that I'm talking about now, and then we finally understood that by replacing people we need to push the progression, we can actually push that progression. And enough people wanted to do it that we worked towards being a hardcore rating guild. And, got all the way up to Heroic Lich King, starting way late on the heroic progression, and getting up to nearly downing him before 4.0 and before the expansion came out. Now, be that as it may, I still understand casuals, and I honestly am more of a casual player now than I was, that's for sure. But I still, when I raid, when I do a dungeon, when I do anything that I'm trying to do good at, I expect everybody else to be trying the same. I don't expect you to be perfect, but I expect you to try enough and be smart enough to handle it. Here's another situation, for example, on Elakir and a lot of fights, when you have to be DPS aware. Now that means you have to switch targets. Maybe you have to get something down to 10%. No lower, which means you have to know how to stop dots early, and you have to know when to stop your damage, because there are others DPSing it too. And then when you have to change targets, and then maybe when you have to change back and get it down. Does that mean you can put another cast in on the boss before you switch to the ad and nuke it? Don't know. Depends. And that's why you have to be smart and have common sense about it. You have to be able to decide for yourself, do I have this extra 1.5 seconds to get this last cast in, or do I need to switch now before I get that cast in? Should I sacrifice the DPS on the boss, or does it not really matter? You really have to decide. I can't tell you when to switch. I can't tell you what to do. You have to just use common sense, which honestly there is a lack of in the entire world. And that includes the WoW community and really every other gaming community out there. Common sense is something that people don't feel they need in a game, and focus is something a lot of people don't feel they need in a game. Now, if you haven't raided for an extended duration, you'll probably still have that more casual mindset. Like, I could do it if I tried, right? And really, you act like you're not trying because you don't want to admit that you're really not that great. I was not a very great raider when I started. Now I think of myself as a pretty darn good raider because I'm capable of leading a raid, calling things out, while doing my own job, and doing it as well as I possibly can. But I was not very good. Back in BC when I started, I was not capable of doing heroics. I had a hard enough time doing level 70 regular dungeons that's what I wanted to focus on, not heroics. And on heroics, they were pretty intense when you're not used to doing heroics, and nobody really was. They were hard. So I preferred to just DPS, not tank them, not have a serious job in it, just a DPS. There's me and 2 others that can do this. It's not as hard of a job. But when I started raiding, I started as a DPS, and I noticed how much harder it is, and how many mechanics there are, the different add-ons you have to have, how focused you have to be, and how well you have to listen and follow directions. Or listen to and follow directions. And no, you're not going to learn to raid in a day. You're not going to be a fantastic raider in a week, 2 weeks. But hopefully within a month of raiding at least 2 days a week, 3 hours a day, within that month, you'll be able to nail it, you'll understand it, and you'll be at least working hard on getting better. And I want to come back to the getting better part in just a moment. But you're always trying harder, and you're working on it. Now, when you've been raiding for a long time, that does not mean that after things are on farm, you can casually mess around and get it down. Because still, fights matter. You have to focus. Always, always, always focus. And as a leader, you have to make sure that your raiders are focused. You have to be extremely focused. You have to have an extremely positive outlook when you're leading. Because if you say, well, it should be nerfed soon, whatever, this is a stupid fight. You know what your raiders are going to think? Yeah, he's right, this is a stupid fight, we'll get it when nerfs come. Now, Holy Beatdown is a decent leader, yes. But the only thing that I found that he was doing wrong tonight was the outlook on the fight. Calling it a stupid fight, calling it a dumb, random number generated fight, is not good on a Raider's morale. That's another very big thing for you leaders. Please, please, please don't act like a fight is stupid. Every fight has its own unique challenges. Conclave of Wind. It's hard. It honestly is. You have to coordinate when you're jumping between platforms. You have to be at the right one at the right time. You have to heal the right people. You have to down the ads. You have to stay out of things. And you have to down all the things at the same time. That's hard. Alright, that's harder than Alakir, looking for tornadoes, not standing in bad crap, and coordinating when you run in and out and when to kill ads. That's, I don't know, I guess you could call that probably about on the same par. But all this happens on the same platform. You're not jumping and trying to handle it on a timer like. But you can't call it stupid. Please don't ever call a fight stupid. Even if you're failing at it, don't call it stupid. Just call yourselves not ready enough yet. Because honestly, there are a ton of people who have downed every single fight in this game, on normal and heroic. If they could do it, it's not a stupid, fight. It must not be. You're capable of doing it. They're capable of doing it. Why can't you? And this is something else. Your morale of your Raiders, guys, is going to be hard. A lot of them are going to either blame you because the raid didn't go well, or they're going to blame the guild or something, They're not going to blame themselves, generally. Oh, man, I kept screwing up tonight. It's my fault we didn't get very far. They're not going to say that. They're going to say, man, the leader didn't call out the stuff enough, or nobody called out the stuff enough, or, man, the guild just doesn't have good enough raiders to handle this. That's what they're going to say. True stuff right there. And you have to basically be able to understand that and understand their frustration. Nobody likes to fail. I certainly don't like to fail. Nobody likes to fail. Alright, no one. You might say, yeah, but I'm cool with wiping, I know it happens. Yeah, it happens, but are you disappointed after a wipe? Or are you exhilarated? Oh man, awesome, we wiped. It's not the same feeling as downing a boss, right? Even tying, say in a battleground or something, if you tied, I don't know, let's see, Strand of the Ancients, say neither of you managed to get into that Titan relic. Oh man, that means you probably lost. Right? No, you tied, but it feels like a loss because you didn't win. Same thing in raiding. Let's see, other than morale, I wanted to say something about getting better. In raiding, and even in life, no matter what you do, you should always strive to be better. There is no such thing as perfection, and working towards it is futile. But the bright side about nothing being perfect and you being unable to be perfect is that there is always room for improvement. Now, if you were perfect, there would be no room for improvement. You're stuck right there. You know what I mean? So, let's say you get better as you get older. If you were, 19 or 20 and everything is perfect, or 21, let's say that. Everything's legal, you're legal, everything is just absolutely perfect. You couldn't get any better. At least that's what you think. You are perfection. Alright, so how does that make you feel for the rest of your life? As you get older, well, you can't get any better because, well, you're already perfect. What is there to be better, right? Instead, you want to think, wow, things are really great right now. I'm 21, I can do everything. Wow, this is great. But it's not perfect because, it's just going to get better from here. Positive outlook. Like I said, same thing with raiding. You're never as good as you can possibly be, ever. There's always room for improvement. As a tank, you can always look how to be more, get more survivability. How to pull more threat. How to maybe add more heals on yourself to take off the heals of the tank healer. How to be where you need to be faster. How to position things better for your raid. Or you. How to, how to get ready for cooldowns, when to learn how to use cooldowns more effectively. As a healer, when to be expecting that heal, when to cast, so you're learning and getting better at casting early, that way the heal's there when it needs to be, and it's there immediately. Not the tank takes damage and then you start casting, but rather you know that damage is incoming. So you start casting 1 second early, that way by the time that, say, that large 2.5 second cast, or even 2 second cast is up 1 second thereafter instead of 2 seconds thereafter, when you don't know if maybe he took another big hit. As a DPS, how to push higher DPS, how to be where you have to be, how to push higher survivability while keeping decent DPS, when to be ready for that cooldown, how to protect yourself and prevent healers from having to heal you when you know big incoming damage is coming. All kinds of things, but there's always ways to get better, maybe even just with your spec. Maybe a more useful spec. Maybe better glyphs, maybe a couple better enchants, gems, anything. Maybe this gear is the same item level as that gear, but this one's going to help you with the rest of your gear. Maybe you don't need the set bonus. You can get rid of that tier piece and throw this other epic on, or maybe you could use that set piece, that set bonus a little bit more, so you drop your other gear that might have seemed a little bit better, but that set bonus is going to be better. You're always thinking and number crunching and figuring it out. Now that to you may seem like a hardcore raider, but it's honestly not. All it is a raider who wants to do good and wants to work out with the team. So there you have it. Now I know I didn't exactly talk a lot about specifically raid leading, but we still have a little bit of time, so I'll get into that as just pure leader perspective and what you have to do to start getting raids together. But I just wanted to go over what your raiders are going to feel, what you're going to feel, because believe it or not, even though it's a game, feelings come into play a lot. And remember, everybody is a real person. Yes, their character may be fake, but you're on the other side of a Ventrilo server or TeamSpeak or Mumble server or, Skype or whatever you might be using. You're on that other side and they're talking to a real person, or that other real person's at least listening to you, or you're listening to them. Everybody is a real person, alright? So don't be a complete jerk to somebody, and understand that, even though someone might be upset now because you had to kick them or, basically call them out for something, that they will get over it, and life will move on. Alright. Now that we're 20-some minutes into that part, if you have any questions about that, please just leave a comment. If you have something negative to say back to me, don't even bother leaving a comment. There's no need to. I'm just going to delete it, alright? You can't troll me. I'm not going to even respond to it. It's pointless. Now, leading a raid. Step 1. What raid are you going to do? Step 2. Are you ready to do that raid yourself, or are you going to have to get carried by somebody else? So many people have to get carried by others because they want to lead a raid because nobody else will take them in because they're not ready. Please think about that. Will anybody else take you into a raid? If so, you can probably lead it yourself, alright? Are you able to speak through a microphone to people and listen to them? Alright, if that's a yes, then do you have patience for wiping, for stupid things happening, for real life to come up, people having to AFK, for people having to drop because something came up, etc.? Now, if the answer to that is yes, then you already know what raid you want to do and you're capable of doing it. Figure out what roles you need to fill. Are you going to do 10 or 25 man? If you're going to do 10, you need like 2 tanks, 3 healers, and 5 DPS. Preferably 3 range, 2 melee, something around there. Now, if you already know that, you've figured that out, you figure out what classes you want to try to work towards, but understand what other classes might work. There's a great raid composition calculator on MMOchampion.com. That's MMO-champion.com. If you've never been there, it's at the top. It's on a black bar. It says raid comp, or raid comp calculator or something like that. And you can drag in the individual roles, spec, and class of what you want in your parties, and organize it, and you'll be able to see what buffs they provide, what debuffs they provide. This way you can be prepared to maximize your buffs and debuffs of your raid. It really helps your success to have that. Alright, then figure out who you want to invite. Do you already know anybody? Are you going to do it just as pugging each week? Do you want to do it as an actual consistent raid team? And are you going to start a guild? And is that what you're going to do? Or are you already in a guild and going to start a raid team within it? Once you've figured that out, I'm going to discuss the starting a raid team in a guild. Be it your guild or not your guild, but you're just raid leading in that guild. Now this is starting a raid team, not just becoming a leader of a team. So now you know what you want, what you need, where you're going to go, and you're ready for it. Start recruiting. You have to work hard on recruiting. Thoroughly outline what your team is. You know, recruiting blah 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 for blah blah we are blah blah. I know you're probably wondering what's in those blah blahs, but for example, we are currently recruiting Holy Paladin and Resto Shaman. We are 2 out of 12 you know, we raid like Friday and Saturday from 6 to 9 p.m. server time. You've thoroughly outlined what you need, what you're looking for, how far you are into progression, and when you raid. Right there, if somebody is interested, they'll get a hold of you. I guarantee it. If someone's like, well, great, well, they're 2 out of something, you know, they're new, they're not fantastic, but I'm not, you know, geared enough, maybe they'll take me, they're looking for exactly what, you know, the class that I am. And I can make those knights. Then right there, bam, you have somebody. Fill that team. As soon as you have a few people, schedule that raid on the calendar, invite them, send a mail out to them as soon as they join the team, and let them know, and remind them that they're on the team they're expected to show. Have your expectations for your raid. Do they need to bring their own flasks? Do they not need flasks? Do they need to bring their own buff food? Do they not need them? Should all their gear be completely enchanted with the best of enchants, or at least decent? Should they be gemmed? Because believe it or not, some people don't have a gem. Maybe they just got their piece of gear. Somebody doesn't have an enchant. Maybe it wasn't in the auction house. Hardcore guilds will not even look at you if you don't have that. Do you want to know their spec? Do you want to inspect them and look them up on the WoW Armory and see if they're gemmed and geared and their progression? Are you looking for somebody who is willing to learn but doesn't have the progression? I mean, there is so much you're looking for when recruiting. And raid leading takes a ton of patience. It's not easy. You don't form a raid team in one day. You just don't. I mean, it's possible, but it's not going to stick around and last like you might think it would. You might pug, right, and get down, you know, Nefarian or something, your first night. You're like, wow, look, we're really good. Everyone's like, yeah, let's do it every week. Thing is, not everybody's going to show that next week. It was just a pug. So you're, you know, screwed. Or they all join your guild. They're not all going to show that next week. I 100% guarantee at least one person is going to miss it. Or forget about it, or be late, or something. Something will come up, I guarantee it. Or maybe they'll be saved because they did it earlier that week. So it'll take time to recruit and manage your team, but you have to be able to manage it, and you have to have good people skills. Now that doesn't mean, you know, you have to just always be a nice guy. It means you have to understand how people feel, and you have to be able to work with them and have patience. So say they really suck at healing. You know, maybe work them into a different spec. Maybe tell them, you know, here's a few things that you can do that will improve your healing. But you gotta kind of say it nicely. You can't just be, you know, a douchebag about it. That'll get you nowhere. Once you've recruited, then it's time for raiding. Make sure, always, I don't care how casual or hardcore of a guild you are, always make sure if they have not done the fight and successfully downed it at least once, that they have watched a video prior to coming to the raid. Not, oh, I forgot to watch a video. That's not alright. I mean, it really, really isn't, because right there, you're hurting 9 others by you not watching it. You could make a mistake that'll throw others off. You could really, you know, test people's patience by you not putting that effort in. So make sure your raiders have done that. If you expect them to bring flasks or buff food, make sure that they have it on when they go into their first boss fight. Make sure you as a leader know that fight and explain it to them. Not in chat, in vent. Make sure all your raiders have vent. Now, if you're a serious raiding guild, vent will be required. It's not going to be an optional or, I'll just type in chat. No. And as I stated previously, you have to have a microphone. So you have to be able to explain it to them. And you have to not jump all around, such as Fhraelaok here is going to do these tornadoes, and you have to stand in the opening. There's going to be blue frost stuff on the ground, don't stand in it, but you still have to get in the opening of the tornado no matter what. And he's going to do a knockback. But don't forget, oh lovely, I got disconnected. But don't forget that, in Phase 2 there's going to be these ads, you got to get them down, make sure you're stacking a debuff, alright, and then, like I said, you're going to get knocked back in Phase 1, right there. Ooh, just messed everybody up. I promise you messed at least one person up by confusing them. Oh, wait. Weren't we just in Phase 2 now? No, you were talking about Phase 1. So there's ads in Phase 1, or that's right, there's a knockback in Phase 2. What? Confusing. So, thoroughly explain one phase or one set of things at a time. Once you're done, ask if people understand it or if they need something clarified. If everybody's good, then it's time to throw up a ready check. Make sure people are ready. Once everybody is ready, count down to pull. Don't just pull, count down to pull. Make sure everybody's already in their positions, which means they're ready. Now, just because people clicked yes, they're ready, does not mean they're in the right positions, does not mean they have the buffs. Unfortunately, people aren't capable of saying, no, I'm not ready, I don't have all the buffs. Or, no, I'm not ready, I'm not in the right place. Or even hesitating 2 seconds to click yes, I'm ready to get into their place or their buff. So, notice that. You have to be completely aware, and you have to be able to call out as the leader when things need to be called out. Now, if you're having a really hard time, but it seems like somebody else is nailing it every time and can also talk, maybe ask them if they could call out the occasional thing. Like, I can call out when tornadoes are coming, but wind burst, I'm too focused on the tornado cooldown for the wind burst. Can you call the wind bursts out? Then, maybe you can have 2 people calling it out, then people will recognize voices and won't even really need to hear what you say, but will recognize the tone and the sound of your voice and know exactly what you're going to say. Now that's, I guess, hopefully. Doesn't mean that they will. But you have to be able to call it out. Don't expect other people to explain fights. Don't expect other people to call things out. It's not their job. You're the leader. They're not the leader. It's your job to do it. And if you're not capable of calling things out or handling these things, you're not a leader, you're just a guy who got the raid together. I'm sorry, that's what it is. You're just a guy that got the raid together. Raid leading is not putting a raid group together and stepping into an instance. It is putting it together and leading every single fight and mechanic. You also have to understand, while doing fights, when you've had enough and need to move on to something different. When people seem to just be doing worse and worse and worse on that fight, it's time to move on. There is a burnout factor, and it's not just in raiding 4 hours a night, 5 days a week. 20 hours a week is a lot of time, but it won't necessarily cause burnout to your raiders unless you spend all that time, and not as a super hardcore raiding guild, wiping on the fights over and over and over again. Eventually, you have to just admit when you've had enough and just call it early. Ask everybody, say, we're just not getting anywhere, now we're starting to get worse. I think we're starting to just get burnt out. We should probably call the raid, early. Let's give it, say, 3 more attempts, and if it's not looking very promising, let's just call it for the night and try it again tomorrow, or whenever your next raid day is. And if you have positive feedback from that, great. If you don't, and everybody really, really wants to do it longer, then of course, satisfy them and do it longer. Do your full raid duration. Now, just the opposite. If things are going really, really, really well, and you're going really far, and everybody's looking forward to doing it a little bit longer, maybe you can extend it to 30 minutes, maybe you can extend it 1 hour. Ask your raid. It's only 10 o'clock tonight, guys. We were going to call it, but we're doing so well, we only have a couple bosses left. Do you guys wanna put that time in? Maybe, a half hour, an hour, or until we wipe a couple more times. And if everybody says yes, and that means everyone, if one person wants to leave, let them go and just call the raid. It's better to call the raid on call time than to have to try to pug somebody and have somebody miss out, or try to 9-man it and just make everybody burnt out because, well, there was no way you were going to down it with 9 people. So, like I said, it goes both ways. Now, as I was originally talking about, when you start wiping and not getting anywhere and not progressing, is it time to replace people? You need to decide. You need to be able to look at their healing, look at their DPS, or look at their tanking, because you're already watching what's going on. You should already see what's going on. So you should already, before you think it's time to call them or to kick them, you should already see what they're doing wrong. And you as the leader should be helping them fix that. Not just telling them, hey, do this instead. Tell them, why don't you try this? It should work better. But don't tell them, do this. More like, try this. Because it might not necessarily be a better change. It might not. Sometimes it's just switching one healer to raid and the other on tank. Or one on the other side and just flip-flop them. Sometimes it's just an easy fix like that, but try to fix it. Don't just kick them. If it can't get fixed and you know why it's going wrong, then find a replacement and get them in. But don't just kick a person and then try to find a replacement. It's better to, honestly, wipe a few more times with them to get that full-on experience with them than it is to kick somebody and waste a lot of time trying to find somebody and calling it, because sitting around is not fun. Again, why you should have alternates and people ready to fill in if you need to. Now then, calling people out. People need to be called out. You might not think so, and you might think that they'll fix it on their own, but more often than not, they will not. So if somebody makes a mistake, call them out. Just say, hey, you were standing in the ooze too long. Please try to avoid that. And see what they do. Now, if just by a simple call out like that, they get rude and negative towards you, then maybe they shouldn't be on the team. They're not a team player if they can't handle, being called out in a little constructive criticism. Such as, hey, you know what, your healing's not doing so great on this side, why don't you try moving and healing the tank? I think you might actually be a little bit more suited to that, and I'll try to heal them, or we'll have them, this guy heal the raid. Right there, that's constructive criticism. That's, here, sorry, you're not doing this so great, but here's what might fix that. So, you're criticizing them, but you're constructively helping them get better, hopefully. Now, your whole raid group might be a complete bust, and you might feel like you want to start over. Sometimes you have to. But really, guys, raid leading is very, very, very stressful. Very, very time-consuming, and very, very emotionally involving. You might not think about it at first, but as you raid with a team, whether you're the leader or not, you'll probably get emotionally attached to the people. And you might, like the people too much that you won't kick them. When, honestly, there's what causing the wipe, and without them, you'd really not fail as much. At very least, if not, down the fight and move on. So always remember that getting emotionally attached to somebody is not a bad thing. It's a good thing. But getting a little too attached and defensive of somebody is not a good thing. Remember, it is a game. Yes, you have to have fun. So does everybody else. Now, we're all raiding together because we all want to have fun. If you're too attached to somebody, say your best friend is in the raid, and they're just doing god-awful, maybe they're lagging really, really bad tonight, They're generally an okay player, but they're just lagging really bad, and it's really killing the raid that you're letting them stay. I'm sorry, they're your best friend, but you need to kick them, at least for the night, because, I mean, that person is failing you. And not just failing you, but the other, like 8 people or 23 people, alright? Keep that in mind. Can't stress that enough. I've seen so many teams that have not gone very far because they tried to keep their bestest buddy over the rest of the team. That's fine, but you have to understand you're not going to get very far if they're not a fantastic player. Alright, well, I think I nailed just about everything I wanted to say. So, yeah, I mean, if I think of something else, I might come out with an addendum to this video and some additions to it later, but we'll see. Anyway, guys, thanks for watching. This has been the first leadership video. Sorry for such a boring video background. You only got to see people flying around in Stormwind. How boring is that? You probably do that anyway. But thanks for listening to me. These videos are probably going to be one that you can just maybe farm while listening to, or do something else while listening to, and you're not actually watching it. So also keep that in mind. I think I'll keep the same kind of format. And I can't tell you how long it'll be each time. I don't know. But that's raid leading. Next week I'll probably talk about guild leading, but I'm not really 100% sure. So, yeah. Alright guys, well like I said, thanks for watching. Please be sure to thumbs up and subscribe if you enjoyed this video. I do have many other different series going on, so please be sure to check my channel and check those out. Among them is RuneScape Forsaken World, of course, this Cataclysm, and Minecraft, so check them out. Alright guys, see you in the next video.